Hello, my name is Gail Henson. I'm president of the League of Women Voters Louisville. We're so happy to have you here tonight for our District 3 Metro Council Candidate Forum. All the candidates are here, and we hope that you'll join us live.
Specific District 3 issues through questions developed by each organization and the residents. The May 19th primary is a historic first for Louisville as it is nonpartisan. No candidates for mayor or Metro Council will have party affiliation on the ballot. Tonight's event is as grassroots as it can be, and it's your chance to hear directly from the candidates. Now, at this time, if there are any elected officials, we would ask that you stand to be recognized. Thank you for being here.
I'm going to tell you just a little bit about the League of Women Voters. We are a nonpartisan grassroots organization. We do not endorse candidates. We work to protect and expand voting rights and ensure everyone is represented in our democracy. We empower voters and defend democracy through advocacy, education, and litigation at the local, state, and national levels. And now to the matter at hand, this forum. The candidates have been sent the following guidelines, and I want to read them to you so everybody's aware of what the rules of the road are. Names will be drawn to determine the order in which candidates will speak. That order will progress with each question. Equal time will be allotted to every candidate, and each candidate will have the opportunity to answer every question. Opening comments will be limited to 90 seconds. Question answers will be limited to 60 seconds. And if a candidate feels a need for a rebuttal, that a candidate can use 30 seconds of their next question's time for rebuttal or put it in their closing comment. Closing comments will be limited to 90 seconds. You will see that we have timekeepers over here, a couple of the nice ladies from the League of Women Voters, who will indicate how much time a candidate has remaining. When the allotted time is over, a stop sign will be raised and the speaker will have to stop. So they'll get a 30-second warning, a 15-second warning, and then the stop sign. Denise, back to you.
Okay. So let us draw names to determine the order in which our candidates speak. We will progress with each question. So for instance, if number 1 is first, then number 2 will be first the second time, number 3 will be first the third time, and so on. We're going to ask if the president of the League of Women Voters can come up to help draw the names, please. And we have slips with the 3 names on them.
Number 1 is Keisha.
Number 2, Kumar Rashad.
The way they're sitting, that works out nice for her, or Denise, no. All right, and number 3 is Sean.
Oh, thank you. Okay, now to our opening statements. We will give you 90 seconds to share your opening statements. We'll start with Ms. Dorsey.
Thank you everyone for coming. I am Keisha Dorsey. I am currently a teacher at W.E.B. Du Bois High School. Even though the school is an academy, I teach chemistry and physics. I am the former councilwoman from 2019 till 2023, re-elected again, but opted to join the mayor's office as former deputy chief of staff. And I am not necessarily a resident of Shiley. I am still a resident of District 3. Keep it short and simple.
Thank you. Mr. Rashad.
Yeah, it's all good. My name is Kumar Rashad. I'm a high school math teacher here at Jefferson County Public Schools at Breck Metro High School, which is a school, an alternative school for students that have gone through the criminal justice system. So we got our own issues and we got our own joys. I also want to let you know that in 2023, I made history as the first and black male to ever occupy the position of Metro Council in District 3. So that's a real great pride of mine. We did great things while we were in there, including passing the anti-displacement ordinance and creating a resolution to help Metro employees out with work schedules that needed to be flexible because of JCPS busing. But I'm here just for family, food accessibility, affordable housing, and mentoring the youth. And that's what I want to bring to this community.
Thank you. Ms. Spencer.
Thank you. My name is Sean Spencer. Thank everyone for being out tonight, and thank you to the League for hosting this event. I am a proud South End resident. I grew up in the Jacobs neighborhood over by the Taylor Berry area, and I'm a current Shively resident. I am a human resource consultant by trade. I'm a community advocate by love. I have been doing community advocacy work probably for the last 20 years, including work with youth, our elderly, infrastructure, housing, job works programs, and I am also involved in the community with other things like with ECHO and things like that. I'm a small business owner. I own a business in West Louisville. I currently work in Shively, and so this is an area, the South End area, is an area that is dear to me. I purposely moved back here to raise my daughter in this area, and I want to make sure that we have a voice on Metro Council equal to or greater than the other areas that have been advocated for in previous years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We'll now move on to the questions. The first question we have is focused on your qualifications. So we'd like for you to spend a minute talking about what talents, skills, and knowledge do you have that will make you a good fit for D3, for District 3, and the whole Metro Council. And Mr. Rashad, we'll start with you.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. What talents, skills, and knowledge do you have that will make you a good fit for District 3 and the whole Metro Council?
All right, let's just start with the knowledge first. Starting off with the knowledge, being in Metro Council in 2023 really prepares me for this position because I'm ready to go on day one. There's not going to have to be a period of adjustment. I'm ready to go. And, you know, the knowledge of what we need to do as far as dealing with our budget in order to make our dreams come true as far as having actual fresh foods in this district. Talents, you know, I'm very talented at getting legislation passed. That's what I do. That's what I've done on Metro Council, getting legislation passed. That's what I do as far as on, I get legislation passed on the National Education Association in front of 8,000 people every year and get them to agree on issues. That's the hardest thing. That's a really hard thing to do, but I handle it with care and I do those things yearly.
Ms. Spencer, you're next. You need me to repeat the question, or you got it?
I got it. Thank you. Qualification-wise, in addition to my college degree and my multiple national certifications, I have been boots on the ground and involved in the community and working with the community one-on-one. I have numerous awards for working with the community, listening, engaging the community, and being an advocacy for the community before I'm even in office. I believe I'm the best and the most well-rounded candidate because I have a history with youth, I have a history of education, I have a history with small business and economic development and structure. I have a history with advocacy for the public, for businesses in front of multiple agencies, Metro Council, TARC, the mayor's office, and other agencies. So I believe that's why I'm the most qualified for this position and what I bring to the table.
Thank you. And Ms. Dorsey?
Thank you. As former councilwoman of this district from 2019 to 2023, I put together the first and only, up until that time, screening during COVID-19, when the South End was completely left out, shut down. We could not get resources from the mayor. My background in public health, in which I have a degree, I call the mayor Shively, and we put it together ourselves. That makes me qualify. In addition to that, understanding that Shively is a small city and understanding that the policy difference in Shively is completely different than Metro, I put together the first plan, had it funded from my office and the city of Shively to give Shively their own policy here in this city, as well as the rest of District 3. I put together an ordinance, or several ordinances, one of many, which gives homeowners throughout the South End and the West End $50,000 to purchase their first home. I did that. I also served as the mayor's deputy chief of staff, and I helped coordinate the budget on both sides of the aisle. That makes me more than qualified, and I feel I'm the best candidate.
Thank you. Our second question, we'll start with Ms. Spencer. The focus of this question is on the needs of this district. And it is, what is the single greatest need in District 3? And what will you do as a council member to address this need?
Only get to pick one. One of the single most issues with this district is one, it's more than Shively. This district is unique. District 3 is one of the most diverse districts in Metro Louisville. You have West Louisville, you have South Louisville, you have South Shively, that's its own municipal city. You have people with low income, people that are lower income, and working families, and everything in the middle. Economic development and growth is the #1 issue because those tentacles from that particular platform touch everything else. When we talk about having food for our seniors, allowing them to age in place, we need supportive services around us in order to make that happen. And so I believe economic development, growth, focusing on that is the key issue that I would like to work on, among others.
Ms. Dorsey, you're next.
Thank you. I believe policy is the key issue. I think it undergirds everything, and that is exactly what I have the direct responsibility and oversight over. Anything else beyond that, I can influence, I can encourage. But if you elect me, I'm elected to change the policies and laws of this area. As such, originally when I came into office, one of the first things I did that I will reiterate is put a plan for Shively in place. That plan then becomes part of the Louisville 2040 comprehensive plan, in addition to a neighborhood or area plan. That makes it such that when laws are passed for economic development, we can then go to the state for funding and say, this is law. It is part of the 2040 plan. It is part of our neighborhood plan. It puts us in place to actually get state and federal dollars. So that would be my priority, is to make sure that the policy is in place to undergird everything that we want to do as a small city and as a district.
Mr. Shaw.
Yeah, as a high school teacher, we were taught that we're supposed to follow Maslow's hierarchy. And in the most essential need of our students is the ability to eat, to have food, clothes, shelter, and you can't even teach a kid if they're hungry. And I truly believe that applies to our district, it applies to our community, especially here. I think that fresh foods is going to be my priority. I'm upset that Southland Terrace has been shut down for over 10 years. I know that, talking with the manager and the owner of the property, they're concerned about certain crimes in the area. They're worried about, so many different things, but they really want to work with us in order to get fresh foods in here. It's really important that we get policies that creates economic growth, and we do important things to stop groceries from leaving.
The next question, we'll start with you, Ms. Dorsey, and it's concerning housing. There is a serious need for affordable housing, both to rent and to buy in all areas of Louisville. What will you do to develop more affordable housing, both in District 3 and Community 1?
All right, well, this is a great one for me because I sat on the board in the Commission for Labor and Economic Development as well as Planning and Zoning. So most of this city is actually zoned single-family dwelling. That's called, I think it's C4. So with single-family dwelling, or R4, single-family residential, that means that the density only allows for a single house on a parcel. It doesn't allow for additional density. The greatest density zoning wise, which we typically cannot go back and rezone unless we go back through the council, is in West Louisville. So in order to change and add more affordable housing, we first must start at the zoning level. You cannot do it until you undergird it with zoning and change zoning policies at the city level and at the local level.
Mr. Rashad.
Yeah, walking around the district, we really need a whole lot. I'm on the board of a group called the Fuller Center for Housing of Louisville. And what this group does is it takes folks who don't have homes, low income families, and we provide them with education, a serious education, because you have to know about budgeting before you own a home. You have to know about that. You also have to know how to fix up your house before you have a home, because these are things that they don't teach you. So that's what the Fuller Center Housing of Louisville does. And then, they firstly start off by buying properties for like $10,000 to $20,000. That way, when we have the homeowners who go through the sweat equity and all the educational knowledge, that they're able to go into and purchase this house and actually be able to be full owners within 5 to 10 years. And that's just one thing. We need to expand on programs like that, and that's why I'm endorsed by the Greater Louisville Association of Realtors.
Ms. Spencer?
Housing is very tricky. We need to look at it on both the policy level and how we approach it in practice. On the policy level, we need laws in place to maintain and restrict what affordable housing definitions or how they are used. Affordable housing in one area is not the same as affordable housing in another area. For example, the AMI that most housing landlords and housing complexes are built around is an 80% AMI of Louisville, not an 80% AMI of South Louisville. We cannot afford $1,500 and $1,600 one-bedroom apartments. So that's the first thing that we need to do. The second thing is we need to look at alternative types of housing that isn't apartments or boxed houses. We need to look at duplexes, fourplexes, triplexes to utilize the land that we have. Specifically in Shively, we're landlocked, so we have to look at alternatives.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Mr. Rashad first. It has to do with the police. What needs to be done to make LMPD and in Shively PD more effective in terms of resources and relationships?
Yes. The entire police force really needs to follow the suggestions of the Department of Justice and really be held accountable, not by their own means. I mean, it's just embarrassing that our city decides that they want to research and investigate themselves in order to see if they're cooperating with certain inalienable rights. We have the right not to be searched and seized. We have the right to have questions answered. We just have certain rights not to be killed by our officers when we're trying to call them for help. We need to really expand these programs that allow our folks who are touched by mental health issues to be allowed to be approached by folks without guns, so that we don't see them dying on TV. So we just really have to hold them accountable to the federal, to our justices, and not by their own means.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Spencer, you're up.
And then I think we need to start at the beginning. We need better selection of officers. We need a way to diversify the officer pool by offering programs to have officers become acquainted with the job. We need to start at the beginning. Then once they are hired in, we need better training, and we need longer training. I do not understand why police officers are giving less training hours than firefighters. Police officers are there to protect, to serve. They're running into danger. They are being called in strenuous circumstances. Why do they receive less training than firefighters that are called to put out fires and to do other things? So we need to look at that. And then we also need to remove the self-investigation or the internal investigation piece. You can not only, can you not investigate yourself, as an HR professional, I know what type of pressure that puts on employees to be investigated by their coworkers or their senior managers.
Ms. Dorsey?
So first of all, I'm gonna go back to, I think Sean said it best, the basics, but the basics are protect and serve. And I think when we get back to understanding what that actually means, it's not law enforcement. Because often when I'm reading reports like the DOJ or the former report that came out, you're looking at policies, you're dealing with the police union. Every single time it gets into the mechanics of all the things that police are doing, with the exception of protecting and serving. Define that first and understand what that means to the community. That's where we need to start. The second piece, I do want to take that last 30 minutes for a rebuttal, going back to that affordable housing. When we talk about fixing up housing, we have to have money to do that because oftentimes that falls to seniors who are on a fixed income. Secondly, the $50,000, the ordinance that I actually got $13 million through the city council to use. Actually, part of that money went to the Urban League that has a similar program that Mr. Kumar Sharp mentioned in making sure the members are excellent. Go ahead.
All right, we'll move on to our fifth question, which has to do with discretionary funds, and we'll start with you, Ms. Spencer. Each Metro Council member has funds to spend for neighborhood development or capital improvements. What criteria would or do you use to disperse these funds to serve your district or support the cause of another district?
I think the first thing that we need to do with those funds is come up with a better appropriation system. Right now, residents do not understand how to apply for the money, what uses how they can use the money, how much it is. And so before I start handing it out and giving it to people, I think educating them on how it can be used, where it can be used, and then getting the community involved on what they see as important for the money to be spent. To be honest, with the way that JCPS is not feeding our children, one of the first things that I would want to do with some of that discretionary money is to provide more funding for meals. You cannot train or teach a child that is hungry. And so some of that money needs to be spent on practical things and not just on activities in one or two neighborhoods.
All right. Next up is Ms. Dorsey.
So with discretionary funding, the first thing is it's actually neighborhood development funds and capital funds. Neighborhood development funds are approximately about 50 to, if we council can put it in there, up to 100,000. Those funding dollars, I actually did a needs assessment when I first started in 2019. I asked the district to rank what you needed, and that's how I used those dollars. So we went away with some of the traditional programming that the former councilwoman had put in place. As such, we use that for sidewalks in Shipley, for speed humps, for putting down striping that seniors could see when they were driving at night, for increasing the lighting for those that drive down Algonquin Parkway. Those were your NDF dollars, actual capital dollars. In regard to the capital expenditures, we combine those dollars as well to go towards the capital projects that we needed to actually match state funding. So that's how we used those dollars when I was in office. I continue to go along with the same premise, start a needs assessment, understand what the community needs, and then match that in capital funding as well.
And Mr. Rashad, the last one on this question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. When I was in office, we use some neighborhood development funds to one, sponsor different programs. One program was a program that's definitely needed in this area. It was called Shoot Balls and Not Guns. This is a mentoring program that's enabled to get kids off the street, introduce them to different things. So because idle mind is a devil's playground, so it also prepares them for different social skills and social wraparound services for them. Also, we use neighborhood development funds when I was in office to push we called it an educational block party, which we had in the Taylorberry neighborhood in association with District 5, in which we had got a lot of books from the public library. We got book bags from the police department. We got a lot of entrepreneurs who look like the people in the area, and bouncy houses, entertainers you know, entertainers who were made up of students of the district, and they got paid.
So, we finished the first 5 questions. Denise is gonna take over for the next 5. It's up to you.
Okay. The next question is on accountability. We're gonna start with Ms. Dorsey. And the question is, what specific measurable outcomes will you commit to for District 3's economic development in your first 100 days?
So I think it's difficult to commit to any economic development outcomes in your first 100 days because in part, outside of partnering and understanding the landscape of the budget, you have to go through and request funds. That usually takes more than the first 100 days. But I think the greater importance is to understand what are the economic development needs within the first 100 days. And that's just not by understanding the businesses that are in play. Shively has a tax, their own tax for businesses, which we can pull a registry and understand those small business needs, but corporate as well as larger needs. Also, as former chair of economic development for the entire city, there should be in both plans an economic development component that will directly allow us to fund whatever said plans which have been approved by this council as well as by the neighborhood councils in West Louisville, and go ahead and get started on the funding policy pathway for that which is already in place, and then go back through the needs assessment to refresh it.
Thank you. Mr. Rashad?
Yeah, can you repeat the question one more time?
Yes. What specific measurable outcomes will you commit to for District 3's economic development in your first 100 days?
Yes, my first 100 days is definitely going to be dedicated to getting the committee back and running that was run by Councilman Marcus Winkler, which included a lot of groups around there to carry so many different groups around Louisville that whose purpose was to get together and decide how we can get fresh foods and groceries in this district. I truly believe that we can do that in the first 100 days. We can really set the groundwork to do things like that. You know, actually, I already have a ordinance written up that is really just called the Metro Louisville Food Access and Nutrition Equity Act, which would allow nutrition and equity to be spread across the city so that no area in the city has a food desert. We need to attack that because people need to live, eat. And then when you attack the food desert, that means, you know, what I was trying to say earlier is that the Oak Kroger lost business because of internal theft. We need to have a different model. The model needs to be more like an indoor farmer's market where people own their own things, because people owning their own things brings economic development to that, and people won't be stealing from themselves, so you're not going to have the internal theft like you had in Kroger.
Thank you. Ms. Spencer?
Yes, I'm not waiting to the first 100 days. I've been doing this for the last 10 years. Economic development to me in this area is absolutely key. I started with the Southwest Dream Team creating a list with other business owners of what businesses we needed to see come to Louisville. We did research on why the government was not pushing development and showing external businesses why they should come to this area. We worked on creating a South and Shively Chamber of Commerce so that we as small business owners can share knowledge, be trained, and be told of the benefits that Metro Louisville has, like facade loans and other things like that. I'm currently working on a project with the NIA Center to bring back that commercial building to full fruition. We need something like that here in South Louisville as well. So I would continue the efforts that I'm doing and make more connections to make sure that things come to fruition.
Thank you. The next question focuses on zoning. We'll start with Mr. Rashad first. When there are contentious planning and zoning issues in your district, how will you go about doing due diligence so you can effectively interact with planning and zoning and the Board of Zoning Adjustment? Mr. Rashad.
Yeah, one more time, please.
Okay. When there are contentious planning and zoning issues in your district, how will you go about doing due diligence so you can effectively interact with planning and zoning and Board of Zoning Adjustment?
This question is just, I think it's just really two pieces to it, honestly. It's really, number one, understanding what the zoning laws are, that at the heart of the issue and really understanding, you know, the history behind the zoning law, but also really just talking to the person or organization that's being affected by this ordinance. We really need to figure out what people are doing, what people are saying, and to just really interview our constituents on how they feel about this zoning. It's not something that I'm gonna do just by myself, but really it's just taking that due diligence of doing the research on the different items and researching with the different community members and, oral interviews and that type of thing in order to go to planning and zoning, and you have opportunities to speak at planning and zoning when they have their community meetings, and just be a part of the process from beginning to end.
Thank you. Ms. Spencer?
Yes, I think it goes back to community involvement and being involved on both sides. Whomever is applying for whatever particular statute or license, making sure you understand what they need and what they're trying to accomplish, but then also speaking to the community and seeing why this particular change, how it's going to affect them, and how they do or do not want it. Which means having meetings when the majority of the community is available, not during the day, having them on weekends, in the evenings, whenever it needs to be, and then also working to repeal Metro Council's ordinance that they would take whatever the zoning commission says and run with it. The Metro Council, we are hired and elected to represent the people, not to be rubber stamps. And so I think that would need to be done. And then while those advocacies are happening, looking at best practices, looking at what other similar situated cities are doing and how they're incorporating and how they're able to balance the needs of developers and industry with community.
Thank you. Ms. Dorsey?
So I'm gonna start where Sean left off. She's actually right. So I was actually part of the council, which is why I sat on planning and zoning to understand how it was done. With planning and zoning, I don't care how many community meetings you have, how many BOZA meetings you have. If you do not have findings of fact, which is why I passed the community plan and the shopping plan, you will still get sued and they can still implement their policy if you don't have findings of fact. That findings of fact puts law in place via those comprehensive plans to allow the community to fight back. In addition to that, I also had people go door to door. So yes, that was me, Councilwoman Dorsey, going door to door. Every single time there was a liquor store proposal. Every single time there was a nuisance proposal. We went to the residents, to their homes, with pamphlets, with flyers. Show up at this meeting at this time. Log in, Zoom. If you can't do either, here's how you write in. Here's how you call in. So it's both sides. But I made sure there was policy in place because without the policies and the laws, you have nothing.
Thank you. The next question focuses on youth violence. Many believe that youth violence is increasing. I'm sorry, we will start with Ms. Spencer, sorry about that. Many believe that youth violence is increasing, especially homicides. Now, as a member of Metro Council, what are some of the specific measures you would propose to address youth violence?
Number one is to get the youth involved. Ask them, talk to them. As I'm running and as I'm going through this process, I've been talking to youth. And we as adults have came up with things like they need a skate ring, they need movies, they need this. When I've talked to the youth, they said we need jobs. We need a way to earn money. We need a way to get to a job to earn money. So we need to really change how we're thinking and not just go with penalizing and containment. We need to do restorative justice for youth when things are done. We need to look at different programs. As a business owner, I created a program called Perfect Path. And we work with youth 18 to 24 years of age with work, living, and character building, where they had volunteer work. They got paid for what they were doing, and they had a place to live so that they're not on the street, they're not pillar to post. And so we need to get creative. We need to look at other cities to see what they've done and not try to reinvent the wheel here.
Thank you. Ms. Dorsey?
So I work with boys every day that are high school level. They need guidance. They need structure. They need love, but they also need that with a firm hand. In many cases, we grew up in community. That doesn't exist anymore for a lot of these young people. So first of all, we have to make sure we have mentorship in place. We need these structures that by fellow cohorts have echoed. But we also need to make sure that we have parent accountability, but also parental support. A lot of these kids, because of the economic strain that we're in, their parents are single parents. They're going home and they're raising their brothers and their sisters. How do we help those parents? How do we make things more affordable? That goes back to housing affordability. So I think we have to look at it as an ecosystem. It's not just asking the kids, what activities do you want to do? But it's also looking at the complete social structure and saying, how can I get that parent back in the house? How can I support them to be a better parent? How can I make sure this kid has a community when the parent isn't there? We have to go back to the basics, and Kumar said best start at Maslow's highest or lowest level.
Thank you. Mr. Rashad?
Yeah, in 2024, I was named the Kentucky High School Teacher of the Year because of the mentoring programs that I bring in Breckenridge Metropolitan High School. You know, I'm from a school that I see the violence firsthand. It's not unusual for me to have to go to one of my students' funeral. It happens every year, multiple times a year. And these kids need love. They need a lot of them need father figures. I'm gonna just be honest with you. They also need, like my colleague said, economic opportunity. So that's why I'm going back to that grocery store thing. I think we can start building up a business like that. Give these kids some jobs. You know, get these mentoring programs that I mentioned before, shoot balls, not guns, or sowing seeds with faith, which is another mentoring group with a former teacher who's now just really doing wraparound services for community. We need to expand on JCPS's program of men equality, which is in over 50 schools. I've been a mentor for over 20 years and the Black Student Union. We also need to reach out to our Rhode Island Student Union.
Thank you. The next question focuses on gun and gang violence. We'll start with Ms. Dorsey. What can local government, in partnership with local organizations, do to help LMPD and Shively Police reduce gun and gang violence?
Listen to their residents. So half the time, I can't tell you how many hopefully I get more time than I may have to go back to this. How many policing forums we have been to. I mean, there have been 1,000,001. Shout out to my mom, who's the police ombudsman, who's been dragging me to this stuff since I was before a kid and got really into this stuff, which is how I got into policy. But there have been numerous forums. At this point, listen to the community. Pull the reports that have been done time and time again. We keep saying the same old thing, but it's not being implemented. At some point, residents get tired of showing up to these forums when nothing changes. So if you take the reports and you take the advice that people have already given you, go forward with that. The mayor said he was going to destroy guns only to realize he couldn't. So other suggestion, when you make a deal or you make a law, make sure you can do it first. Let's start there.
Thank you. Mr. Rashad?
Absolutely. I definitely agree with my colleague about listening to the residents and getting everybody's thoughts and processes in there. Also, I think just on a Metro Council level, we can also create ordinances that put stricter gun laws into place. Also, we can also set up gun programs, exchanges in the community. But what we really want is just to really build upon workforce development, because people have guns and commit crimes just either out of opportunity, or they commit it because, you know, they're really just desperate and they just need to, you know, they might need something to feed their families at the moment. So we really got to figure out what are the root causes and address the root causes, and not just be so quick to just penalize folks, when we really need just to be looking at the root causes and just doing our best to support our local enforcement and getting the guns off the street.
Thank you. Ms. Spencer?
I agree with every one thing that they've said. One of the things, however, that we don't do a good job of, and it's not just here in Louisville, it's the entire United States, we tend to lead with an arrogant mentality, meaning that we will not learn from other societies, other countries. We need to really look at what we're doing. So as we're looking at those root causes of why these guns are needed, some of them is mental health, some of them is a lack of resolution skills. Where are those being taught and how are we utilizing those? And then also, don't make policies, or don't say you're gonna make policies that you cannot incorporate. We had the same thing with minimum wage. The city decided that it was gonna raise minimum wage, and it didn't work out. People were excited, they thought they were gonna make more money, only to be told by the state that you can't do that. They were told by the state, you cannot destroy guns. And you haven't heard anything else about it. Where's the fight? Where's the push? So we just need to go further.
Thank you. Question 10 focuses on Frankfurt. And we will start with Mr. Rashad. The question is, in this session of the Kentucky General Assembly, numerous bills were filed to take power away from Louisville, such as Senate Bill 4 to recreate the JCPS board. What do you see as Metro Council's role in building bridges with Frankfurt?
Okay. Well, yes, I think that, well, first of all, I'm a lobbyist for my union for Jefferson County Teachers Association, so I go down there all the time. And yes, Senate Bill 4, I helped work against Senate Bill 4. It was a strenuous process because at first they wanted to take away, go from 7 to 5, but then they wanted the Attorney General in Frankfurt to choose the other two to be finance officers. We fought hard against that. We won that part. I still am, I'm still not feeling where they're at right now. We really have to do a better job of connecting with our Frankfurt politicians and honestly do a better job of connecting with the rest of the state, because that's what the problem is. A lot of times the state looks at the state versus us, and then when you go out to the state, they're voting against our interests because they feel disconnected from us. So we really have to do a grounds effort job of going through every precinct, every district across the state, so because most of the time our values align.
Thank you. Ms. Spencer?
Yes, with working with those in Frankfurt, we have to learn how to not only work across the aisle, but listen to them and to get them to understand. When you're in Frankfurt and even other parts of the state, they tend to look at Louisville as the cash cow, and if they control us, they can control the amount of money that comes to them. So whether you're looking at the Senate Bill 4, you're looking at the brownfields that Senator Herring was able to get passed, or Kentucky State University. Those are all ways to control them, controlling us, without them really understanding the city, but then still wanting an economic value, an economic return to their area to support them. And it doesn't quite work that way. And I think they don't understand. And those one-on-one conversations would go a long way for them to really understand, if you start restricting this and that, this is the economic consequence of it, which means your area is going to get less money, and you're going to be able to not take care of your people. So I think it's really just the communication piece.
Thank you. Ms. Dorsey?
So this is an easy question for me because we have state reps. So you work with them. I believe in staying in my lane, and the residents elect me just like they elect these state reps. So what does that mean? That means partnership and communication. But they have state reps that can carry that weight. So when my residents come to me, my responsibility is to know and have the knowledge of what is within the parameters of what I can influence, but also what's in the parameters of someone else who's already elected to carry that forward. So the first thing I would do is create partnerships with the electeds of this area to carry those initiatives forward. The second thing is we have someone at the council level who's previous leadership, Kevin Bratcher, but that means we have to reach across the aisle and have relationships with Republicans in order to get things passed. Thirdly, when it comes to the larger measures or state driven things, you also have to have those relationships because oftentimes it comes with a mandate from the federal level that restricts the state as to how they can do it. So having that relationship at the federal level.
Thank you. And that concludes 10 questions. We're going to give you all 30 seconds to breathe for a second, then we'll move on to number 11. Okay?
The people of Louisville deserve a mayor that will listen, that will offer opportunity, that will make sure the most marginalized get the resources they need. I'm here to tell you that I am the right choice because I've been working for you the whole time. I plan to be exactly who I campaigned to be. And every role I've taken in this city has been to serve and take care of people. On May 19th, this is too important for you to stay home. We need you to go vote for your future. Louisville, it is our chance to change the direction and to make it better. Louisville is better when we come together as community.
Louisville, it's time.
This is brought to you by the people to elect Shamika Parrish Wright.
New construction going up is bad for the area. It goes back to policy, it goes back to ordinances. The leaderships that we have in place right now and in the past have allowed these things to happen. They weakened our voice by dividing up the district. They have given developers more leeway to adding things in. For example, here in Shively residents are fined for the soot and the angel dust that is on their houses. Well, we didn't create that and we can't stop it. And so we need to toughen ozone and we need to toughen the air quality regulations for those manufacturing. So I think it's both. It's the policy side, getting it done, and then also the community side with them pushing us to get things done.
Ms. Dorsey?
So this is when I dug into personally because my background is in public health. And so I understand the health disparity. So I actually started down this rabbit hole of finally getting to something that I created using the data that already exists from the previous health equity study called Air Justice. Air Justice allowed us to create policies in partnership with the University of Louisville to go through an IRB and actually have scientifically proven outcomes that we could then take back to the state board, which actually controls air pollution control, and say, in this area, we are disparately impacted and here's the data. But also, how do you communicate to us about the outcomes? One thing I do want to point out is something we learned the hard way is something called air credits. These companies, once they have so many air credits, they can trade them around. We cannot regulate air credits from Rubbertown because if one company goes out of business, they can sell their air credits, which means they can release higher pollutants in the air as long as they don't go over their air credits. I'll stop there.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes, I was talking to a resident earlier today, and we really have to make many ordinances that really put caps on the amount of pollution that these companies can deal with. I mean, this specific resident had whiskey fungus all over on the top of his roof, and said that they have to get high pressure water on there at least every 2 years, and that's mostly in the Taylorberry area. So we really got to do that. We really have to actually educate these folks, our folks, on how they can get support from the city, the Office of Housing and Community Development, on how to report these issues and perhaps get funding from the city to help regulate the property. But we also actually, I'm just going to leave it right there.
Next question is on representation. We're going to start with Ms. Dorsey. District 3 has often felt unattended. How do you plan to educate and involve residents in the city council decision-making process rather than just speaking for them?
So there's something I clearly don't believe in. When I first got in, I was bombarded, probably like every other resident, and the former council people and anybody in Shively could tell you, I went ragged. Running door to door, educating the council, and I say council, Shively Council, about one, the tax increase and what that would mean. Insurance premium tax. Former Mayor Beverly Chester-Burton can tell you I was on the phone with her consistently up until the last minute, even got Shively to have a last minute meeting so they could pass an ordinance so that it would supersede whatever the city would put in place so that Shively would be protected. So when it comes to meeting and talking with residents, one is to be knowledgeable of what you can and can't do. Two is to make sure that you have partners, because there's an entire Shively City Council that when I need to make a decision at the last minute that requires partnership, then leverage your council members to go out into the community and I'll take care of this section, you take care of this section, let's come together, let's understand what the needs are and make sure that the voice is represented.
Mr. Shaw?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. District 3 has often felt unattended. How do you plan to educate and involve residents in the city council decision-making process rather than just speaking for them?
Well, when I was in office, I definitely felt like I built trust through two-way communication. I had multiple town halls, community events. I've listened at community meetings Shively Hall meetings, and sought input from undeserved groups for equitable representation. Our office was responsive, transparent. We helped our neighbors navigate bureaucracy and explain how this feedback would help the decisions. We visited local institutions, invited neighbors to the legislative process. We had newsletters, first time having newsletters in the district. For that most part, mobile office hours, we're gonna utilize that and have that. Also hire someone whose sole job is to go around the district and look for things to clean up or areas that we can improve, and they talk to neighbors around that area. And also, I agree with my colleague on talking to the Shively City Council and the state reps.
And Ms. Spencer?
Unfortunately, what the two former council people have laid out is great in speech and is great in writing, but in theory, that is not what happens at Metro Council. We are consistently being left out, specifically Shively. We were left out of the redistricting when the area was redistricted a couple of years ago. Some members of the community in D3 did not even know they were outside of D3 until they were told. We have had events that have happened here. We've had money that has been reallocated outside of the district. Our needs have not been met. There's been closed door meetings that have affected us that we were not involved in. So we need to change things. There needs to be more transparency with the meetings that are happening at Metro Council. There needs to be more notice of what's happening, and there needs to be more resident involvement, whether it be on an advisory board or community liaisons whose sole job is to come out to keep residents up to date and informed about what's going on.
Our next question deals with data centers. Mr. Rashad, we'll start with you. And simply put, we want to know what your position is on data centers.
Data centers are just like other factories that people who have a medium to upper level income don't want in their neighborhoods. So they're gonna put them in mostly black and mostly poor neighborhoods because they don't care. I do not like the idea of data centers using thousands of gallons of water and really just polluting our system, really polluting our land. We already have a smell problem in our area. We already have a lack of green space. We already have all these different problems. We don't need a data center in these areas. And if the people who are so for these data centers really want them, then let them put them over there beside their house. But I guarantee they won't do it.
Thank you. Ms. Spencer?
So we need data centers. We all like technology, but there is a responsible way of doing it. And backdooring deals, which is the one that's most reflective of what we have here for the data center that's coming here. I can't speak about the ones in other cities. The one here did not take best practices. There's a data center in Indiana that is working differently. They didn't take that seriously. We already have data centers here. There are 2 data centers in West Louisville, already in the Portland neighborhood. The data center that is being put out here is being put next to hazardous chemicals. No one brought it up. The developer and our current mayor worked together to pass the West Louisville TIF and to help with redistricting so that it could be purposely put into a neighborhood that wasn't going to push back and did not have the resources to push back. And that's exactly what happened. So data centers need to be somewhere else. They need to be in rural areas, and they need to not take our utilities.
Ms. Dorsey?
I'm gonna take 30 seconds to make some corrections to the record. First of all, with District 3, the first newsletter actually came under my district. It was the first one, and if you wanna go back and look it up, there are receipts. Secondly, when it came to notifications and door-to-door and a in-district person, boots on the ground, that first time happened under my leadership in District 3. Going back to data centers, 2 parts, economic development, but then you also have the health portion. I'm gonna go back to policy every single time because my job isn't to protest. I'm lethal with this pen though. So when I put policy in place, I've done my research, and part of having that economic plan and the Shively area plan puts the law in place to be able to say, per the zoning, even though the zoning allows it. That's what we need to understand, because you can't go back and change the zoning. So the zoning allows it, that's there. But this new policy says that this is how you can use it, and it restricts it based on the new policy that is in place. So we gotta know how to use our policy that exists.
Next question, we'll start with Ms. Spencer, it's on communication. D3 residents want to be heard and informed. How do you plan to respond to residents who contact you? What District 3 communications will you continue, and what new communications will you initiate to keep residents informed?
Yes, I'd like to make a clarification on definitions really quickly. Advocacy and advocating for people with your words and with your pen and with your writing is not protesting. As far as communication with our district, we have a district that is diverse in education level, with age, with technological use, and with technology availability. So we have to be able to communicate with our people across different platforms. So some people are gonna have newsletters. Some are gonna have robocalls, or they like having meetings. Not all meetings need to be in the evening. If we're dealing with our seniors, or our seniors that are caretakers, we need to have things on the weekend or in the morning. We need to have that message coming in different ways and from different people in order to meet the most amount of people in our district. There's always gonna be people that we don't miss, but we wanna reduce that number.
Thank you. Ms. Dorsey.
So I want to correct something and make sure I'm very clear. I can protest with this pen, not everybody can. When I'm an elected member, this pen has power. But everybody can protest, or most people can protest, but it's like a body. My hand can do, my brain can do, if they're not connected. So we all have roles, and that's exactly what I mean. I am not necessarily the most sociable person, but boy, am I smart, and I put people around me that are sociable. Know what your strengths are. So that's the first thing, I want to correct that. When it comes to messaging, we had text messaging. We had precinct at the precinct level, so that we didn't even have to have a lot of people talking, so that in an intimate setting, we had precinct town halls. We also had the first newsletter. We also, you could always count on me or my legislative assistant to be here at Shively neighborhood meetings, or at any neighborhood meeting, or at the even small community meetings that people would have, and show up at things like the NAACP, show up at the Kentucky Alliance, making yourself present, period.
Mr. Rashawn.
Read it one more time, please.
District 3 residents want to be heard and informed. How do you plan to respond to residents who contact you? What D3 communications will you continue, and what new communications will you initiate to keep residents informed?
Okay, well, I want to start first by backtracking real quick and just talking about that one of those earlier questions about the how we're going to deal with the folks in Frankfurt. And I did hear someone say something about Kentucky State University, and I just wanted to throw it out there. I helped work on that Kentucky State University legislation, and I spoke on it, and I'm just so proud of our work that we did. But I also have to respond to, we can't always just rely, being a lobbyist, we can't always just rely on just going to all of our representatives, because most of the representatives in this area are Democrats, and we have a supermajority in Frankfurt, so we really have to be able to reach across the aisle and deal with folks on both sides. But, but back to the question is just really about, I'm definitely going to be keeping the newsletter, definitely going to be having folks, my employees walking around the district. I'm also going to have mobile office hours. That's going to be something different, is to have mobile office hours that I can gain input from folks all across the district.
Thank you. All right, our next question is about the budget. We're going to start with Ms. Dorsey. And the question is, could you please comment on Mayor Greenberg's budget proposal and how it helps both the city and District 3?
Well, there's a nice piece of legislation that I co-author, that I actually wrote, and got some co-authors from other people. It's called the Budget Equity Ordinance. And I was going to respond to something earlier. We don't have to go back and create new ordinances. There are already ordinances in place, but understanding how the ordinance works is fundamental, because an ordinance tells the mayor what you would like him to do, but it does not make us do it. At the same time, he has to implement it. An ordinance is different from law. So understanding what an ordinance is versus a resolution is the first step. Secondly, with the budget, putting it in the mayor's budget. So we talk about feeding people. Let me tell y'all something. $50,000 ain't gonna do nothing for Shively Area Ministries by itself. But there's something called Louisville Area Ministries. And there's also, I think, is that Tim in the back with Elder Serve? These are entities that you put into the mayor's budget. That's a much larger budget to make sure that those things are undergirded. You make sure that your capital is in there. That's a city credit card, by the way. So you make sure that your projects that you could typically take out NDF, I'll stop there.
Mr. Shaw, you're up next.
Yeah, I think that Louisville Metro Council person can leverage the $1.35 billion that is in the budget proposal. And, I think that you spoke about it earlier, a lot of these things can be used to implement into neighborhood development funds or capital infrastructure funds, sidewalks and all that type, or really economic development funds that we talked about earlier, because the 2026 budget included $3 million for targeted development in the South End, West Louisville, East End. That's what money that we can use to fight if we get a portion of this South End funding, because I see a lot of South End funding going all the way down the road towards Valley. There's a lot of economic development going down there, but we need to fight and have folks bring the economic development up here, which is why we got to get folks to go on May 13th to go on to the Metro Council and make their voices heard on what we need in this district.
Spencer.
I think we need to take one step back from the budget. We need a complete forensic audit of Metro Louisville. They have wasted our taxpayer dollars over and over again. We've talked about the data center. We've talked about having access money. No one's talked about how much we're paying for the water company in order for them to have a $37 million profit when the city of Louisville owns the water company. So that $37 million that was directly given or put into the system by our bills should be used to fund projects that are more community oriented. We need to start with the community activities first before we start looking at some of these developing projects and giving money to entities like a Young Center or other places. We need to prioritize community and people over politics and friendships and collaborations with like people.
So that's the end of the 15th question. I'm going to switch back to Denise. She's going to do the last 5 questions before closing comment.
Okay, question 16. It focuses on trust and access to services. We're going to start with Mr. Rashad. Many families don't access available resources, not because they don't exist, but because of trust, complexity, or timing. How would you ensure that investments in District 3 actually reach families in ways that are accessible, dignified, and community informed?
One more time, please.
Okay. Many families don't access available resources, not because they don't exist, but because of trust, complexity, or timing. How would you ensure that investments in District 3 actually reach families in ways that are accessible, dignified, and community informed?
Well, first of all, I'm gonna have families be a part of the whole process of just deciding on how we disseminate a lot of the resources. Because I would like to add that it's also, and when we talk about trust, complexity, and timing, a lot of times it's just that they don't even know what's out there. Our residents don't even know what's out there. So making sure that folks get the message out, first of all, holding different town halls to educate people, and really just, put yourself out there in so many different aspects and areas, different meetings, and because that's what the people need. They'll trust you the more they deal with you, and that's what we need. We just need better opportunities to educate our community about the resources that we have and make sure that they understand where they are, because there's a whole lot of ordinances, there's a whole lot of rules and help grants that are just really hard for people to find. So we just have to be better disseminators of resources.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Spencer?
We have to rebuild trust. I don't know how many people in here trust our Metro Council, our administrative, our mayor's office. So we've got to start with trust, and we've got to start with systems and processes. We have 3 and 4 systems that are doing the same thing, systems that are not talking to each other. We have data that the city is using to get grants and to get funding, and then they turn around and reallocate those funds outside of the area that the original statistics came from. So we have a long way to go, and it starts with trust, it starts with accountability, it starts with auditing, it starts with looking at at dollars of who is on the books. It even continues on to who are on these different committees and all these different councils that the city is using to get activity from. When you start looking at it, you see it's very incestuous. You have people that work here, that live here, that are married to this person on the same committees. So it goes back to trust and access.
Thank you. Ms. Dorsey?
So first I would start with the organizations that are out there that are already doing this work and figuring out how I can empower them. One thing you guys have learned about me is I am a partnership queen. If you already doing it, I am not gonna reinvent that wheel. Tell me how I can support you. That being said, so right down the street, we have Chicago Area Ministries. Reverend French, I don't know if he's still the ED there, but he was the executive director, and the previous gentleman, Gary. What do you need? Outside of food, they then said, hey, Ms. Dorsey, we need things, private supplies or intimate supplies for our seniors because they're no longer being provided. So when we have partnerships and people are already doing the work, a lot of times they've established the trust. They've established the need. I'm one person, and I'm gonna tell y'all, I would love to do it all, but I can't. So the question is, how then do I get out there without killing myself with only 24 hours in the day? That's to lean on the people that are already doing the work and have proven outcomes and understanding how I can support them.
Thank you. The next question focuses on housing. Housing instability is deeply tied to income volatility and insecurity. What role should Metro Council play in creating pathways to stable living wage employment in District 3? And how does that connect to your housing strategy? We'll start with Ms. Spencer.
One of the things I just wanted to redirect really quickly on the partnership with and access. During COVID, I worked with Sam, with Metro United Way, and with individuals because the city decided that it did not see it as a priority to feed our seniors. We gathered $100,000 to support these entities, got volunteers, and passed out food in this area to our senior citizens. We've got to go back to trust. They can't even trust you to feed them. So on the wage piece, I agree. We need to work with small business owners because we are the largest our largest economic engine in the United States. It is not the large businesses that have 30 and 40,000 employees. We need to work with them on ways that they can provide a living wage of $15 an hour and up, and then also how they can work within the programs that they have in their offices and access to within their company to help employees stay stable with using that money.
Thank you. Ms. Dorsey?
So I'm gonna go in a really odd direction here. There's very little we can do when it comes to living wage. So even with the city, there have been ordinances passed. The city has passed its own ordinance that it could not implement, even from a perspective of its own employees, to understand that they were being underpaid. I'm gonna tell you, I'm a teacher, and I'm underpaid. So the question is, we have a partner at the federal level in Morgan McGarvey. Hold his hell accountable. How do we get dollars in relief at the federal level where there are laws in order to protect workers, in order to ensure a living wage, or give us the flexibility at the state and local level to be able to impact that in various ways according to our own economic local development? That being said, again, there's partnerships and understanding what is our role. I can tell you at this point, I don't even think $15 is worth a living wage. The way eggs have gone up, period, and milk. So I'm gonna leave it right there.
Thank you. Mr. Rashad?
One more time, please.
Okay. Housing instability is deeply tied to income volatility and insecurity. What role should Metro Council play in creating pathways to stable living wage employment in District 3? And how does that connect to your housing strategy?
Absolutely. You know, I think, again, I'm going back to ordinance that I'm drawing up, and I definitely want to implement with the Louisville Jefferson Food Access and Nutrition Equity Act and that. I think within it, you know, I think we want to give certain financial help to businesses that would actually kind of require them to set the wage at a certain amount when we're building in that, you know, to really build the community. So we really want to do things like that, you know, and that's why, you know, I also work with the anti-displacement ordinance, because this is an ordinance that says no city money can be used to bring development into your city unless the citizens have a say so. So that lets people not get priced out of their housing, which saves them money. I also, you know, I'm working with the Louisville Tenants Union to make sure that folks can have reasonable rent, and we need laws and ordinance to protect our renters as well.
Thank you. Next question focuses on TARC. We'll start with Ms. Dorsey. TARC is planning to cut 12% of its service in August. This will have devastating effects on transportation to jobs. Explain your position on supporting and funding public transportation, specifically TARC.
So, first I wanna go back to the last question. I'm gonna try to do it in 10 seconds. So going back to housing strategy, I do wanna point out the $50,000 that I wrote an ordinance with a cumulative of 13 million was going in the hands of homeowners, not developers, not anybody else, not even the Urban League, even though they were facilitating the process. That 50,000 went toward the down payment. So it moved people out of renting, giving money to somebody else, into their own home with 50,000 towards the equity, which then starts creating generational wealth. That's my housing strategy. Going back to TARC, removing 12%, please understand that the man who ran the mayor's PAC is now on the TARC board. That being said, you have to understand what is the overall objective of even reducing that. If TARC is used for mobilization and economic development, who are the primary utilizers of TARC? Where are they going? Where is the frequency and where is the need? I think that we should demand those answers and then understand how the cuts are being made, and if those cuts are harmful, I have to stop.
Thank you. Mr. Rashad?
One time, please.
TARC is planning to cut 12% of its service in August. This will have devastating effects on transportation to jobs. Explain your position on supporting and funding public transportation, specifically TARC.
Well, absolutely. I think, first of all, we need to have an intense audit on TARC and just make sure that, money is being spent wisely on their end. But more importantly, we really need to have community input on these decisions on how, what routes are going to be cut and what routes should stay. I mean, I really think that we really need to, TARC really needs to prioritize our underserved areas, folks that don't have transportation and just have lower economic status, and make sure that they have free routes. I mean, make sure that everyone has a route to get from their home to the grocery store, number one, especially with so many food deserts in the area. So, or to a college or to school, but just make sure that we really have the people's input on how we prioritize these route cuts and prioritize the ones that we really need to serve the most underserved people.
Thank you. Ms. Spencer?
TARC. Okay, so TARC 1 is a hot mess, but part of it is because of its relationship with metro government and with the lack of leadership. You have to remember, TARC is part of the reason why TARC doesn't have money now started in the 70s. TARC has not had a percentage increase in taxation since the 70s. There was no way possible for it to sustain the service level that it was tasked with doing just as a business model. Last year, I'm in a building that is being sold by TARC. It was an initiative for the city and TARC together to provide a hub in West Louisville to service people that could barely ride to jobs, that could also pay for it. And what happened with that was it was mismanaged to the point where they had to sell it in order to fund projects. Then when Metro Council offered them $10 million, they said, we don't know what to do with the money. So that's a problem. I'm gonna stop because of the time.
Okay, thank you. The next question focuses on working across the aisle. We'll start with Mr. Rashad. When you are elected, how do you plan to work effectively with people from a different political party for the good of Louisville?
Yes, back to the anti-displacement ordinance that we did, just a real quick recap again, it's just an ordinance that makes sure that the residents of the city have the say-so and a voice on what businesses can come in their neighborhood, so they're not overpriced in their own neighborhood. Now, this was passed on November 9th, 2023, that was my last day in the Metro Council, and it was passed unanimously. So I know how to work with the Republicans and the Democrats on the city level. I know how to work with the Republicans and Democrats on the state level, and I even know how to work with Republican Democrats on the national level. I do sometimes have to, often, about 3 times a year, go to DC to talk to national representatives. So it's just about talking to people, because we really have more in common than we have different. It don't matter what party you are. Some people are extreme Republicans, extreme Democrats, but most of us are pretty much in the middle.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Working across the aisle, when you are elected, how do you plan to work effectively with people from a different political party for the good of Louisville?
I will continue to do what I've been doing. Not only do I work well across the political party with independents, Republicans, Democrat, and those that are unclassified. I also do it across socioeconomic classes, races, genders, and part of that is using facts and sitting down to have a conversation and having an open mind to be able to listen to and to put yourself in the shoes of the other person. When we talk about TARC, and I'm just going to bring it up really quickly, one of the things that I was able to do was, one, to get TARC to not to sell the NIA Center to be torn down for an overpriced development. 2, we were able to get to TARC to sell it to us and all of its content. We were able to work with bankers, residents, elected officials to figure out a path forward for that building to stay open, not only for small business development, but for future transportation uses. So I've already been working across the board.
Thank you. Ms. Dorsey?
So, as a former councilwoman and passing the Budget Equity Ordinance and Land Development Code series, getting the grants for air justice, chairing labor and economic development, sitting on planning and zoning, chairing health and education and housing. It is a constant partnership. There is no Democrat, Republican, or independent. It's communication and partnership. And the real difference is whether we agree or don't. So it's not about party. And what it comes down to is, if we agree, let's partner. If we don't agree, it's Abraham Lincoln's, it's a book called Team of Rivals. If you don't know what it is, go read it. How do you understand the other person's objective and perspective? Everybody wants something out of the pot. Oftentimes it's, hey, if what you want isn't gonna hurt me and what I want you can put in here, let's move forward. So it's about understanding what people want when you don't agree and understanding synergistic efforts when you do.
Thank you. Our last question before closing statements focuses on eviction. We'll start with Ms. Spencer. Eviction is a systems issue. In District 3, many families facing eviction are also navigating unstable childcare, low-wage work, and limited access to transportation. How would you approach eviction not just as a housing issue, but as a systems issue?
I would advocate and work to get rid of eviction court. It needs to be more of a mediation and arbitration where you have both parties sitting together to come up with something that's workable. Whether that's moving to another apartment that you can afford, or if it's referring you to the Louisville Urban League that has a housing program where your mortgage will be cheaper than your rent. It needs to be more a collaborative effort instead of you did X, Y, and Z, so now you have to move your kids and all, because it's systemic. If you're evicted and you have kids, then now you have kids that have unstable housing. You may be living in a car, so it's unsafe. You don't have a way to get food. So it's not just that you're having to leave your place. It is uprooting your family and causing instability. So we need to come up with a way that's different than the court system as it currently sits.
Thank you. Ms. Dorsey?
I'm actually going to disagree on this one. I think I've been on both sides of the aisle. I've been a property owner, and I've also been a renter. I will tell you, some people need to be evicted because they also can cause harmful impact on others. I've been in apartments where people have been arguing and a bullet comes through on the other side and children are still impacted. So I do believe that we still need eviction court. However, I do advocate for some type of mediation because oftentimes when we look at the traditional renter and we paint this picture, it's of a person who's suffering economically. But that is not always the person that is going to eviction court. Secondly, I believe homeownership really is the key. If we can get people to home ownership, that is the ultimate goal. It's equity, it's financial stability, it's generational wealth, it's responsibility, and it's community. Because when you buy into a home, you buy into the community, you own that street, and you're dedicated not to just your home, but you're dedicated to every single neighbor on that block.
Thank you. Mr. Rashad?
One time, please.
Okay. In District 3, many families facing eviction are also navigating unstable childcare, low-wage work, and limited access to transportation. How would you approach eviction, not just as a housing issue, but as a systems issue?
Absolutely. I definitely agree with my colleague as far as with home ownership. That's why I work with the Fuller Center Housing for Louisville. And in that position, I have been able to take folks who are homeless or without a home and turn them into home owners. So I do have that experience with that. But I also want to say that, if we did, going back to the eviction court, most of the time, a lot of folks don't get evicted when they have a lawyer present, and we really need to expand on law ordinance passed. I think when Ja'Cory Arthur and Cassie Chamber Armstrong had an ordinance which really put a whole lot of money into eviction lawyers for low-income families who need that. And it's really way below what we really need in this city compared to other cities, Boston especially. So we really need to increase that. And that'd be one of the first things I would do is increase the amount that's in for families who are going to eviction court to get a lawyer.
Thank you. That concludes our questions.
All right, so we're gonna move on to closing comments. Each of you will have 90 seconds for your closing comments. And we'll start with Ms. Dorsey.
So I'm going to back my way through this hopefully. Going back to evictions, so my office was actually one of the ones that helped lead the policy and the ordinance to make sure that during COVID, folks were not evicted. And I made sure a person from my office, whether it be a volunteer or paid staff, sat in on every eviction case that went through eviction court for District 3. Clock that. Secondly, as far as working across the aisle, Ms. Dorsey will work with anybody. My goal is people. I will tell you all, my weakness is that I am an academic and I am an intellectual. But I understand that about myself. So I will tell you, my legislative aides are the most fruity, flirty, loving people in the world because oftentimes I don't come off that way. I know that about myself. I wish I could be more loving and come off more exuding in that manner. I am. However, I am serious about my business. I'm serious about policy and I'm serious about law. My job is to partner. My job is to put policy in place. My job is to listen and to understand and to connect. I have objectives that I am going after. Many times in this community, we go after feelings, what we think we should do, what feels good. I want to know what can I do and what will change an outcome because you'll love me later after I get something done. I'm not here to make promises that I cannot keep. I have objectives that need to be met and that's what I'm going after.
Thank you. Todd, you're next.
Thank you. Yes, my whole platform is built off of family, improving our families. Matter of fact, my acronym I use is just FAM, F-A-M. F is for fresh foods, which I've been talking about over and over again because we need that. We need that in this area. The A is for affordable housing, and I do have experience of getting that with the Fuller Center for Housing. The other day, we went up to American Village in District 3, and we just won a recent court case in which the landlord was trying to go and just go into these people's apartments while they were asleep. While they without any notice. So we got a restraining order on them. They have to have 48-hour notice before they get into the homes. Not only do they have to do that, they have to have the homeowner's permission. I've worked my entire life just building relationships and making sure that, I have good relationships with people and making sure that I build my brand up. And that's why I've been endorsed by LIUNA, the labor workers. That's why I've been endorsed by the Louisville Democrats for Kentucky AFL-CIO. I've been endorsed by Better Schools Kentucky. I've been endorsed by the Louisville firefighters. I've been endorsed by the United Auto Workers. I've been endorsed by the Greater Louisville Central Labor Council. I've been endorsed by the Greater Louisville Association of Realtors, and I've been endorsed by the Fairness Campaign because I'm someone who they trust. They know that I'm gonna get the job done, and that's why I was picked out of 250 teachers to become the 2024 Kentucky High School Teacher of the Year, celebrated by the whole state.
Ms. Spencer.
My work has been well-rounded. I have not been in the seat of Metro Council as my two former, but I've done the work as a community member. 2009, I started working with small business advocacy and improving and gaining more small businesses to South Louisville. In 2019, I was on the front line of the tenants' rights in the tenants union by helping them write the actual ordinances, rights, and getting it proofread and ready. In 2012, I started with environmental justice, specifically for Southwest and West Louisville areas. 2018, I started my senior citizen advocacy with making sure they can age in place, making sure they have food, making sure they have access to resources. 2000 was with youth working, youth housing. 2022 was better transportation for our area to support us as small business owners that are trying to hire people in our community. I've been doing the work in the community with the community for decades. I think I'm the best rounded candidate because not only can I understand policy and learn from it, I also understand recently what our community needs, how to contact them, and I touch all areas. I am an expert in human resources. However, I surround myself with experts in all the other areas, and I keep myself abreast of what's happening on the ground with those areas. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the League of Women Voters and Pi Lambda Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, we want to thank the candidates for their time and their attention and expertise that they shared here today. We really appreciate you being here. We want to thank all of you who've come out to listen and to be a part of this grassroots effort. And we want to thank Shively City Hall and for their hospitality in letting us use this facility. Please don't forget to vote. The primaries are on May 19th, or you can early vote with no reason, just because you want to early vote on May 14th, 15th, or 16th. And I know back there at the League of Women Voters table, they have information about where you can early vote and what your options are. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming out. We appreciate it.
Louisville, it is our chance to change the direction and to make it better. We deserve better. We get there together.
This is brought to you by the people to elect Shamika Parrish Wright.
Through every note, every performance, the arts connect us. The arts connect us through joy and through awe, bridging cultures and generations. From intimate theaters to the grandest stages, the arts bring us together, reminding us that we're never truly alone. When we experience the arts, we experience each other. Kentucky Performing Arts. The arts connect us.
Hey y'all, I'm Attica Scott, former Kentucky State Representative, and you're joining me today on State Live Streams.
We will continue to provide updates as we have more information.
Kentucky State Representative, and you're joining me today on State Live Streams.